started reading this series from Marvel, I was really excited to first finally get back in on an event as it was going on, ever since really getting back into comics again. It started off with a really good bang, and then right up until this issue here is where we start seeing the bigger issues unfolding. The rest will be explained when we recap the entire series, but I did want to take a minute and just address a few things as we go forward. Number one, this is not meant to discourage you from reading. These are my opinions alone, and should only be taken that way unless fact are brought in to help make sense of plot holes and such. So, if you by any means want to read this for yourself, or you disagree with what I'm saying, please by all means go and check it out for yourself. I would never really tell anyone not to read something unless I felt that there was something so morally offensive about it that it would be best left alone. Number two, this series was delayed up to nearly 2 months, so the argument can be made that a lot of changes were made at the last minute in order to better serve the time gaps. I have talked about this before, but I do have to take that into accountability because this is going to make sense of a lot of things as we recap the entire series at the very end, but at the same time, it doesn't excuse the mistakes that have actually been made. Number three, my liking of DC does not affect my views on this series whatsoever. So anybody that wants to cry out, fanboy, understand one very important thing. While Green Lantern was the very first comic I've ever read, Spider-Man was the franchise that made me want to read Marvel. So, just because I do prefer to read some comics over others does not mean that I will look down on Marvel for any reason. I still think Infinity Gauntlet is one of the best series that I've ever read. So, from here on out, we are officially in what I like to call the gray zone, an area only reserved for the hardcore fans, and you'll later learn out why. So if you have some stomach for the rest of this, let's get to some fighting. We start off this issue with a very Stan Lee-ish looking character giving a group of people a tour in a helicopter of New York City while they're screaming to see some heroes. It is at this point we finally get to see Drax go splat right on the windshield of a helicopter. I know, right? About time. And then the following page we get our huge flash page of both sides finally clashing in a pretty impressive spread. You want to know what can make this better? Let's go immediately away from the action and go right back to the New Attillion for some more dialogue.
You stupid, ignorant son of a bitch, dumb bastard!
Yeah, it happens. Yeah, they teased this for over 4 issues and yeah. We get a Guardian of the Galaxy going splat on someone's windshield. 2 sides running at each other, and we go to more dialogue. Killer work, Marvel. During this dialogue scene, we see Medusa and Karnak talking. She telling him that the humans are finally at war within themselves and that they have been summoned by Captain Marvel. She tells him to gather the rest and that she hopes that cooler heads will prevail. I really don't understand why in this case. I guess she wants to remain neutral, but that would pretty much inexcuse everything that happened up until that point, including them trying to go to Stark Tower, even though he'd kidnapped their fellow Inhuman. The motives just are thrown all over the place, but we'll get to that later. Ulysses interjects and asks what they're fighting for. She just tells him instead that he must remain there and that his abilities are of no use to them at that time, much to Karnak's approval. Seriously, screw you, Inhumans.
You're so stupid!
No. As much as Stark and Danvers bantering back and forth is driving me insane, I can really not do without your extremely hypocritical attitude towards pretty much everything in this whole series. If you like the Inhumans, you're probably not going to like them too much in this series. From what I've read from other people's reviews, it's a pretty common thing. We then see Iron Man and Captain Marvel mid-fight as they continue to banter back and forth about each other's personal ideals and such, and at this point, I have just checked out. I don't care. I don't care. They're fighting. I'm taking it at that. They're fighting. Woohoo! The crowd rejoices. We see Stark blast Carol with his repulsors. She then gathers it, reminding him that she can do that, then shoots it back at him. And this next panel kind of confuses me because it shows as Stark saying that he knew that she was going to do that, making it believe that it would miss and hit Gamera, or at least that's what I'm thinking she hit. But it honestly looks like he shot her. So, just an an artwork error, but it looks really out of place here. is at that point we see Captain Marvel falling to the ground due to a special attack from Stark, which we really don't get an explanation of. It's pretty much just, oh, you didn't plan for this. It's brand new Stark tech. So cool, we'll take it. Next up, we see Doctor Strange as he's entered the fray, and he uses his magic to bind several members of the X-Men, which is also pretty weird because the X-Men are on both sides of this fight, and the reasons for why they're on there are really never revealed. It's kind of weird, but it's also kind of interesting at the same time because that pretty much means that they don't just blindly follow someone, but again, it's not explained. It would have made a lot better sense if this was just a very smaller, contained fight rather than just having a ton of people all at once. But anyway, Storm is able to free the X-Men courtesy of an ice blast to Doctor Strange's face, which I feel is perfectly effective in this situation. The next two we see facing off are Blue Marvel and Luke Cage, while also having a somewhat lengthy dialogue where we see Blue Marvel gladly gloat about his resume to Cage just in time for Nova to blast Marvel while he was monologuing. I have a feeling they're focusing more on the conversation rather than the actual fighting. And if you haven't drawn that conclusion until this point, guess what? Your world just got blown up wide. Cut to a 4-panel spread that has several heroes hearing about all of the news of the fighting as they all go on about their days, also seeing Hawkeye walking in the wilderness with his bow. I actually really liked this page. It showed how not everyone got involved in this skirmish for their own reasons, whether it having to do with simple choices or consequences from earlier in the series. It really does give this fight a lot of impact as the readers are watching as some of the heroes make a very difficult choice not to fight, which in turn is probably the more intelligent point. Back in the fight, we see Sam Wilson and Magic having a very gripping dialogue about not wanting to fight because she's a girl, and I'm assuming she transports them to Hollywood for some reason. I'm not brushed up on Magic, I do apologize. She gets ready to attack and then gets hit in the head with an arrow for reasons. Yeah, they're doing a stellar job so far. We now see Rocket Raccoon firing off rounds from his machine gun, clearly having a little too much fun trying to commit murder until Spider-Man drop-kicks him from the scene. Good on you, bud. Venom takes Rocket's place, and we have some of the better fighting scenes in this, as we see Venom telling him that he is not the real Spider-Man, clearly referring to the fact that this is the Miles Morales Spider-Man and not Peter Parker. Spider-Man is able to divert him enough in order to hit him with an electrical current, which, or at least this is what the comic wants you to think. Again, I'm not up to date on a lot of these heroes. And is able to get away from his grasp. And I do like this fight, and I do like how they make Venom look. Venom is supposed to look creepy and scary and extremely dangerous, and they did a very good job with that. The next two combatants to fight, or at least talk, are Peter Quill and Captain America. I was actually kind of excited to see this until it was just talking. Yes, it was a very brief dialogue, and then Iron Man decided he needed to get involved and screw with him by saying he hacked into his helmet. So, good for you. The two argue about why he chose Marvel over him, and Quill simply replies, "I'm better friends with her." A truly solid reason to have an all-out brawl. He continues about how he knew about Ulysses' vision, and he thinks that they're great.
Everybody just shut up!
Much to the disapproval of Stark. The following page, we see the Vision destroying the Guardian spaceship, much as the Guardians look on in complete horror and terror. Seriously, the looks on this panel, I was legit laughing out loud, because I could actually see them thinking of the characters in the movie having the exact same reaction. I love this. It was hilarious. The Inhumans arrive to the fight finally. Karnak and Stark are starting to go at it as Black Panther tries to restrain Stark. We then see Ulysses is having these bands coming from his hands so powerful that they're able to wrap around the building that our heroes are fighting on. Doesn't fully explain this, but I think we can firmly guess that this has to do with his visions and how everyone's able to see them. So it's like wrapping a reality around them. I liked it. I thought it was pretty cool. While this is going on, we see Captain Marvel and Iron Man fighting against each other yet again until the Vision finally gets projected from Ulysses. This time our heroes appear to be on a desolate, war-torn city. They look on in horror as they see in this vision a terrifying image of Spider-Man holding the dead body of Captain America. The actual Spider-Man falls to his knees and lifts up his mask over his mouth. He is consoled by one of the heroes but is held back by Captain Marvel. The comic ends with Captain Marvel telling Spider-Man that he's under arrest.